Hello everyone and welcome back to Daily Kaylee. We are on day 4 of the 13 Days of Halloween series. Today's episode is about Jodi Arias and the murder of Travis Alexander. I had actually never heard of Jodi or Travis until a friend of mine recommended this case to me, which is insane because while the murder itself happened when I was still pretty young, the sentencing for Jodi happened while I was a teenager, so I would have heard about this on social media or something, but I never did. A little bit of background on both Travis and Jodi. Travis was born July 28th, 1977, and Jodi was born July 9th, 1980, so she was 3 years younger than Travis. Travis was a salesman, and he worked for a company called Prepaid Legal Services. He lived in Mesa, Arizona. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I'm not from Arizona, so some of these names go over my head, but I'm going to say either Mesa or Mesa, but I don't know. So if you're from Arizona, let me know how you pronounce this. Like I said, he was a salesman for a company by the name of Prepaid Legal Services, and he was at a conference for this company when he met Jodi. They met in September of 2006 in Las Vegas, like I said, at a conference for his company. Jodi was obsessed with Travis, to put it lightly. She converted her religion to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to be a Mormon for Travis. He himself baptized Jodi in a special ceremony, and they began dating shortly after in February of 2007. Jodi moved from her home in Southern California to Arizona to be closer to Travis after just a few months of dating. In April of 2008, she moved back to California, and she actually lived there with her grandparents. Travis and Jodi only dated for about a year and a half. They were off and on for a while. And I'm pretty sure, there's speculation, it's not documented or anything, but I'm pretty sure they broke up either in March or in early April of 2008. And this correlates with her moving back to California to be with her grandparents. Although they were not together for very long, Travis's friends knew who she was, and they had a negative opinion of her. Most of them. They saw how they were together, they saw how Jodi was, and they just thought that it was very strange that their relationship was so tense. It was unusually tense. It was not like your normal everyday squabbles in a relationship. It was super tense and stressful when they were on together for a year and a half and they were adults. It was strange. They also said that her behavior was worrying. Travis was murdered on Wednesday, June 4th, 2008. He suffered from 27 to 29 stab wounds, a slit throat, and he had a gunshot wound in his head. The medical examiner later testified that Travis's jugular vein and his trachea had been completely slashed, and he had defensive wounds on his hands, so he was fighting back. He also noted that he believed that Travis was already dead by the time he was shot, and that the wounds on his back were shallow. They were not as deep as the ones on the front of his body. Obviously, his death was ruled a homicide. A little background on the murder, how their investigation led to Jodi. In early 2008, he was planning to go on a work trip to Cancun, and he told his colleagues and acquaintances that Jodi would be coming with him. This trip was scheduled for June 15th. However, in early April, Travis requested to change the person that he had already listed coming with him, and it was going to be another female friend, not Jodi. This also correlates with her moving back to California, obviously them splitting up, things not being great. On May 28th, the house that Jodi lived in with her grandparents was robbed. One of the missing objects from the house was a .25 caliber handgun, and it was never recovered in the investigation of the robbery. This is important information because the gun that shot Travis was a .25 caliber handgun. Coincidence? Maybe. It's suspicious, though. On June 2nd, 2 days before Travis was murdered, between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., Jodi called Travis 4 times, but she did not appear to get a hold of him because the longest call was like 17 seconds. She was clearly hanging up because he wasn't answering. After 3 a.m., Travis called Jodi twice. The first time lasted 18 minutes, and the second call was 41 minutes long. At 4:03 a.m., Jodi called Travis again, and the call only lasted for 2 minutes and 48 seconds. This is the last documented conversation, or last documented contact between Jodi and Travis, but we have no transcripts of these calls. They were not available for the trial, so we don't know what they were talking about. At 5:39 a.m., just barely over an hour and a half after the last call, Jodi drives south to rent a car. This car is being rented, supposedly, for a long trip to Utah. On June 2nd at 8:04 a.m., Jodi rents another car in Redding, California. Not another car, sorry. The same car. She arrives at the car dealership. She rents a car in Redding, California. She tells the place, like, she will return it at the same location, because it was a chain, obviously. She said, yeah, I'll bring it back here. Jodi visits a few friends in Southern California, and she says she's on her way to Utah for a prepaid legal services conference. She is set to meet with Ryan Burns, who is a coworker, and that was that. By June 3rd, she had set out for Salt Lake City. When people start becoming suspicious about Travis, he misses an important conference call on the evening of June 4th. The following day, on June 5th, Jodi meets with Ryan Burns in the Salt Lake City suburb of West Jordan, and they go to business meetings for the conference. Ryan Burns says that he noticed that Jodi's hair, which used to be blonde, was now dark brown, and she had cuts on her hands. On June 6th, she left Salt Lake City and drove toward California. She called Travis several times and left several voicemail messages for him. She also accessed his cell phone voicemail system, I guess to see if anyone else had been calling. I don't know. Jodi returns the car on June 7th, and it's noted that the car has been driven about 2,800 miles. The rental clerk also says that the car was missing its floor mats, and there were red stains on the front and rear seats. It could not be verified if the car had floor mats when Jodi picked it up, so they kind of just had to cut their losses on that one. And the red stains could not be analyzed by the police because the car was cleaned before it was examined. On June 9th, no one had been able to reach Travis for 5 days now. So a group of his friends went to his home because they were concerned about him. His roommates had not seen him for several days, but they thought that he was out of town, so they did not suspect anything. They all found a key to Alexander's room, Travis Alexander. I don't know why I called him by his last name after this whole time I've called him Travis. But they find a key to Travis Alexander's bedroom. They open it and they find large pools of blood in the hallway leading to the master bathroom. And in the bathroom, they find Travis's body in the shower. They call 911, and in the call, the 911 dispatcher is asking the friends if Travis has been suicidal or if anyone was angry enough to hurt him and do this to him. Multiple of Travis's friends mention Jodi and say she's a possible suspect. She's sus, something's off about her. They also said Travis had told them that she had been stalking him, logging into his Facebook account, and slashing his car tires. While the police were searching Travis's home, they found a recently purchased digital camera. It had been damaged already, and it was in the washing machine. It had been washed by itself in the washing machine, and that was weird. The police were able to recover some of the images, and it showed Jodi and Travis in sexually suggestive photos, which were taken at approximately 1:40 p.m. on June 4th, when she was supposed to be on her way to Salt Lake City. The final photograph on the camera that they could recover was of Travis alive, and he was in the shower. It was taken at 5:29 p.m. June 4th. Moments later, there's one more photo, and it appears to be Travis's body profusely bleeding on the bathroom floor. In their investigation, the police also found a bloody palm print on the wall in the bathroom hallway. When it was tested, it contained DNA from both Jodi and Travis. On July 9th, 2008, Jodi was charged for the first-degree murder of Travis Alexander. She was arrested at her home 6 days later in California, and she was extradited to Arizona on September 5th. She pleaded not guilty. And during this time, first of all, she's had over a month to prepare her story. And she had 3 months by the time she was extradited to Arizona to really know her story. However, she changed her story multiple times while she was pleading not guilty on September 11th, 2008. I mean, she provided several different stories about her involvement in his death. Her first story was that she had not even been in town the day of the murder, even though they had literal evidence that she was. She also said she had last seen Travis in March of 2008 when they split up. She later said that 2 intruders broke into the home, murdered Travis, and attacked her, and she escaped. Finally, 2 years after her arrest, she admitted that she did kill Travis, but she said it was in self-defense and that she was a victim of domestic violence. The trial itself did not begin until 2013. The jury was selected at the end of 2012, and they had their case lined up and ready to go. In the opening statements, the prosecutor wanted the death penalty for Jodi. However, the defense attorney claimed that Travis's death was a justifiable homicide because it was committed in self-defense. That was their defense. Ryan Burns testified and said that when Jodi visited him in Utah, the two of them spent several hours hugging and kissing on a large beanbag chair. Kind of strange, because she was obsessed with Travis. She had literally just gotten back from murdering him, but like I said, at this point, we don't know that yet. So, even if you do believe she's innocent, she was obsessed with him, and now she's kissing a coworker. I don't know. Anyways, he was asking her about the cuts on her hands, and she told him she had cut her hands on broken glass while she was working at a restaurant called Margaritaville. In their investigation, they determined that there was never a Margaritaville franchise in her area of California where she lived. So they don't even understand why she lied about the name of the restaurant. However, she was working at another restaurant and chose to not use that name. She later testified that after she cut her finger, she had a bazillion margaritas to make, so it made the cuts worse. The prosecution also argued that the .25 caliber round that was found in Alexander's body and the theft of the .25 caliber handgun from Jodi's grandparents' home was very coincidental to the point where it proved that she had staged the robbery to use the gun to kill Travis. The prosecutor claimed that Jodi had stalked Alexander and slashed his tires twice, and that in the final days before his death, Travis Alexander called her a sociopath and the worst thing that has ever happened to him, and told friends that he was afraid of her. Jodi took the stand in her own defense on February 4th, 2013, and she testified for 18 days, which honestly only hurt her case. She had been so untrustworthy, uncredible, just awful. She destroyed her own case because she could not stick with the same story. She was constantly changing the facts, and it didn't help the innocent look she was trying to put off. She tried to sabotage Travis's reputation with the Mormon community to prove that she was innocent and that she was the victim and that he was the perpetrator. She testified that she was violently abused by her parents from the age of 7 and that the abuse continued at the hands of Travis when they began dating. She said that Travis was secretly a pedophile and he desired both male and female children, and that she was trying to help him resist these urges. At this time, forensic experts testified that they had examined Travis's computer and they found no evidence of any pornographic material or anything sus. Jodi testified that her relationship with Travis was increasingly physical and emotionally abusive. She said on the night of his murder that Travis grabbed her and shook her while saying, "I'm fucking sick of you." He then began screaming at her. He body slammed her on the floor at the foot of his bed and began taunting her, saying, "Don't act like that hurts." And then he called her a bitch, kicked her in the ribs, and she said that he went to kick her again and she put her hand out. She held up her hand in the courtroom and it showed that her ring finger was crooked, like it had been broken and healed wrong. She claimed that she killed him in self-defense because he attacked her when she dropped his camera and it forced her to fight for her life. This was the third different account of the events that happened the evening leading to Travis's death, which, like I said, this deeply hurt her case. If this had been her first and only story, I believe she could have gotten away with murder. But this deeply hurt her case. The prosecutors, the courtroom observers, the jurors, they all felt that this destroyed her credibility. The prosecution called in a few witnesses that included I won't say tons, but a few of Travis's other girlfriends that he had throughout his adult life, and they all stated that he never had a problem with anger or violence. Jodi was pretty damn confident that no one would convict her, that she would be seen as innocent. And I think she had a huge wake-up call when she actually stepped foot in the courtroom and this trial began. But at the time the trial began, she was very adamant that she had been suffering from a memory lapse and could not remember hurting Travis. She was examined by psychologists. She had all kinds of tests done. She went through therapy. They believed that she had been suffering from acute stress at the time of the murder, and it sent her into a fight or flight response. One of the psychiatrists, or psychologists, by the name of Richard Samuels, said that he believed this stress caused her brain to stop retaining memory. A juror asked him if the body and the brain can respond this way if it was a premeditated murder. And she already knew that she would be in that environment. And he said, "Is it possible? Yes. But is it probable? No." He also diagnosed her with PTSD. Like I said, she was evaluated by multiple psychologists. So, 2 weeks later, another psychologist who was also a psychotherapist, her name was Alice LaViolette. She specializes in domestic violence, and she evaluated Jodi. She testified that she was indeed a victim of domestic abuse, and that most victims don't tell anyone because they feel ashamed and humiliated. The psychotherapist read emails from some of Travis's close friends and said that they had basically been telling Jodi to move on from the relationship, and that Travis had been abusive to women. Another psychologist by the name of Janine DeMart testified for the prosecution. She said she found no evidence that Travis Alexander had abused Jodi, and that there was no evidence of PTSD or amnesia in Jodi. She also said that the memory loss that Jodi claimed to have is very inconsistent with traumatic amnesia, because she claimed for having this for long stretches of time. But the actual amnesia associated with PTSD is usually much shorter gaps in memory. She also said that she thinks Jodi suffered from borderline personality disorder, and that she showed signs of immaturity and an unstable sense of identity. The final defense witness was another psychologist. His name was Robert Geffner. He said that DeMart's borderline diagnosis was not appropriate, and that all of the tests that were taken by Jodi since her arrest pointed toward an anxiety disorder that came from trauma. He also said that all of the tests that he had access to looking over indicated that she had answered these questions honestly. They called another psychologist, Jill Hayes. She disputed Geffner's testimony, and she says that the tests that Jodi took were not geared toward diagnosing borderline personality disorder. Therefore, there was really no way that he could know if she had it or not. Another part of Jodi's testimony, one of the main pieces of her defense to show that she was not anywhere near Travis on June 4th, was that she bought a 5-gallon gas jug at Walmart in Salinas, California on June 3rd, 2008, and that she'd returned it later that same day. So there was a paper trail to show she was in California. On April 24th, we are months into this trial at this point, the prosecution calls Amanda Webb, who worked at the Walmart in Salinas, and they call her up to the stand. Amanda says, according to Walmart's records, no one had returned a 5-gallon gas jug on that day, and that records show Jodi returning the gas jug 1 week later. This piece of evidence was a huge... what is the word I'm looking for? I guess evidence again, but I just said it, so it sounds wrong. But this was a huge piece of evidence for the prosecution, because they wanted to argue that she had premeditated Travis's murder, and the whole reason she went to this Walmart to buy this gas jug was so she would be recorded at Walmart on this day, and she would have an alibi. As I said, this trial is very long, and it took so much out of everyone. They had lots of problems retaining the jury members because it was so long. A lot of them had to be dismissed and they had to find new ones. At the point that we are at now in the trial, on April 25th, the defense costs had reached almost $1.7 million. Finally, on May 7th, 2013, after 15 hours of deliberation, Jodi was found guilty of first-degree murder. All 12 jurors found her guilty of first-degree premeditated murder, and 7 of them additionally found her guilty of felony murder. After this, they had to determine if Jodi was eligible for the death penalty. However, they had the same trial twice, and both times, all of the jurors could not agree that she deserved the death penalty, so they had 2 mistrials because of this. At this point, the judge gave Jodi life in prison with absolutely no chance of parole. Jodi made multiple appeals. All of them were declined, and finally, on March 24th, 2020, even with all of the crazy problems that they had during this trial, Jodi had been convicted solely upon the overwhelming evidence of her guilt, and he upheld her conviction. As of today, Jodi is living in the Arizona Department of Corrections, which is inside of the Arizona State Prison Complex in Perryville. She started her sentence in a maximum security unit, and she has since been downgraded to a medium security. So, she's still in there, and she has no chance of parole. I hope you all enjoyed this case. This case was very harrowing for me to get through, because although it happened at like the peak of social media and there was so much information that could have been out there for me to find, I did not find a lot of information about Jodi. There's a lot of info about the trial, but there's really not enough about her to determine if she really wasn't in a domestic violence relationship. And I know a lot of us are quick to discredit people like this because they are guilty and they'll make up anything to get off. But it's just very interesting that Jodi and Travis were only together for a short amount of time, and they were doing long distance for like half of it. But they had such a tense and stressful relationship. That's just insane to me. Tell me what you guys think about this case. I hope you guys enjoyed it, like I said. I will see you guys in a few days for day number 5, and I can't wait. Bye, guys.